Okay, so in this video we're going to look at dividing integers using integer chips. So notice we have some columns here, dividend, divisor, and then we're going to circle the group. So we have 12 divided by 4. Okay, so remember for, say, 4 times 3 equals 12, we'd say 4 groups or 4 copies of 3 is 12. Okay. So to reverse that idea, we're going to say how many copies of 4 are in 12, okay? Or groups of 4 are in 12. Notice this isn't the only way to think about division. We could also question if we have 4 groups of 3, we could also say we have 4 groups, what's the size of the groups? That would give us 12. Okay, but we focus on this how many copies of idea here. So you start with your dividend, which is 12. So they could put down 12 positive chips, and they want to break it into groups or copies of size 4. I conveniently put them in groups of 4. Okay, and now the solution is the number of groups. So this is 3 groups or 3 copies. So there's 3 copies of 4 in 12. Okay. Here, both of the numbers are negative. Negative 12 divided by negative 4. Well, you can imagine that this scenario would be the same, except we'd have negative chips. And we want how many copies of negative 4 are in 12. So this is 1 copy, 2 copies, 3 copies. Now notice, even though they're negative chips, it's still 3 copies of negative 4, or 3 groups. Okay, and again, if they can visualize this, they'll start to see how the sign relationships, I'm sorry, that's negative 12, or negative 12, how the sign relationships work. And then like we did with multiplication, this can get kind of tricky. We could, if we have negative 12 divided by 4, how many copies of 4 are in negative 12? We could do some things where, you know, we take opposites of the chip and then take unopposites, or we could group negative 12 into 4 groups, and each group would have negative 3 chips in it. But instead we just, and then this one we're pretty much out of luck, so instead we just use the opposite of interpretation. Okay, so this is similar to A, except that the first one is, first the dividend is negative 12. So we just say the opposite of 12 divided by 4. So if this was 3, your result is negative 3. Here we have the opposite of negative 12 divided by negative 4. Since this was 3, this would be negative 3. Okay, so there are ways to work within that model, but it usually ends up confusing students more than helping. And then notice here we have connecting multiplication and division, and we did this a little bit here. So also using the missing factor model, how many groups of 4 are in 12, how many groups of negative 4 are in negative 12, and also writing the corresponding missing factor model. Okay, so writing this as multiplication just as we wrote subtraction as addition. And again, our goal here, we want them to see the relationships between addition and subtraction and multiplication and division, but also addition and multiplication have all the nice properties we like, such as commutativity, associativity. So sometimes we like them to work solely in terms of multiplication and addition so we can benefit from that. And we'll see that in the next unit. Okay. There's a problem like this in Math AS where they have to basically write a question mark as the missing factor. I set it up so if they wrote question mark times 4 or 4 times question mark, it will be marked correct. But officially, how many groups of 4 are in 12? the first number is how many groups of, this is the size of the groups. So we should have them write it this way. I don't want to make too much of a thing out of it, so that's why I didn't have it marked the other direction wrong. Okay, and one last type of problem here. Just like we did with addition and subtraction, we'll have them multiply and divide larger numbers and then recognize the pattern. So when they look at these, they should think, well, I need to multiply 14 times 23. In these two cases, my answers are positive. In these two cases, my answers are negative. Okay, and putting these together helps them make that connection. Same thing with division. Divide the positive values, and then the other values will have the same result, just the sign may be different or not, depending on the signs of the original numbers. Also notice we have a fraction example here. So I hope this helps, and there'll be new videos for Unit 3 soon.